Welcome to the Business 7 Show. My name is Juan Klache, and joining us in studio today is the manager of the Namibia Convention Bureau, Esther Ndilula, who will be speaking to us about initiatives that are currently being targeted to ensure that Namibia is in a position to attract business tourism. The CEO of the Electricity Control Board, Robert Kaimithe, recently announced that the board had granted permission for the Osona settlement to now procure electricity directly from Senored.
The permission for Osona outside of Ganja to operate under the licenses of Senored. Those licenses are the distribution and supply licenses. Also, what was approved is SORED or Southern Red shareholders. So the shareholders have resolved, they have moved away from top-up in the south. Now we're expecting the Southern Red to be operationalized. It has been formed because you remember it was Southern Red before, then shareholders changed the name to top-up. Now we are back at Southern Red, which we are way to be operationalized. With everyone's support, from us as a regulator, from government as a key stakeholder, because the owners of the REDs is predominantly Nampower, which is wholly owned by government, second tier of government, regional councils, and the third tier of government, which is local authorities. These are public entities.
Staying on matters relevant to the ECB, Kaimithe also announced that Nampower was owed $1 billion by various state-owned entities and local authorities. Kaimithe urged that these dues to Nampower be settled so that it can invest in power infrastructure for Namibia.
In the likes of the generation projects, bring down the cost down, we wouldn't struggle in realizing some of, especially in decreasing expensive imports with local generation. So Nampower is owed over 900 million. That's from local authorities, state-owned enterprises. Some of them have breached repayment settlement arrangements to the tune of 557 million. As at 25 November 2025, with Marindal municipality owing the largest share at 233 million. Marindal municipality.
Johnny Doisep, one of the founders of the Kaisosi Medical Center, has announced that the center will be allowing patients to come out who do not have medical aid. This follows a $20 million investment in the facility.
Nation. For a nation to be productive and efficient, we have to be healthy. Ours is not about maximization of profits, because COVID have taught us a lesson, Right Honorable Prime Minister, that COVID has never discriminated against rich, against the poor. When it strikes, it strikes. And when this idea was presented, we are not only going to be catering for the ones with the medical cover. We are Namibians, we are investors. Within all 14 regions of this country, in 121 constituencies, we have got people without medical cover. But it is our duty as Namibians, as investors, to meet the equalizer of the equalizers, who happens to be our government, to meet them halfway. And that's the prime objective of our strategy as investors at Kaisosi Medical Center. The services that we are going to present and offer will be offered to every Namibian
Prime Minister Elaya Nguraire welcomed the opening of the Kaisosi Medical Center, saying it was one of the efforts to ensure that medical services were brought closer to people.
Of this historic Phase 1 Kaisosi Medical Center, that is what Mr. Dinyando has said as the Phase 1. It is therefore not merely a ribbon cutting ceremony for a building of brick and mortar, but it's a celebration of resilience on your part as founders, a triumph of vision over skepticism, and a critical step forward in the march of our country's universal health coverage. I'm told that the journey began last year, 2024, March. Of course, as you can imagine, it's not long ago. Like many great Namibian stories, it started with a dream, but faced the harsh winds of reality. When the founders approached financial institutions, the doors were shut. The banks asked them for collateral. They looked at spreadsheets and risks assessments and said no to their requests. But the founders of this institution knew something.
The CEO of Petrofund Namibia, Nelian Mulemi, says that more specialized training opportunities will be availed to Namibians as Namibia has been identified as a potential new major oil and gas exporter.
Commitment to the craft of journalism. I'm also pleased to inform you that we have commenced discussions with our partners to support specialized training programs for journalists in 2026, particularly those that are reporting on energy matters in the oil and gas industry. This training aims to strengthen your capacity to report on petroleum-related developments at a time when the industry is rapidly evolving. Following the oil and gas discoveries recorded in 2022, and more recently in the Kavango region, where Recon Africa has made discoveries, it has become important that as the press, we bring you along and make sure that you are well equipped to support the oil and gas industry by reporting factually, accurately, and timely. Once the logistics are finalized and made public, I will encourage you to register and participate in these valuable programs. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today to engage with you on the work of the Petrofund and how we can deepen our collaboration going forward.
The manager of the Namibia Convention Bureau, Esther Ndilula, stressed the need for Namibia to host more international business events to ensure that it can market Namibia as a suitable destination for business tourism.
To collect that data as much as possible. Let us put it on our events calendar. We need to know absolutely every single event, because every single event is a show and tell. The more events that we host, the better. And it really shows us, and it shows us as a destination that we can and we're able to be able to host some of these events. The other one is you need to sign up as a service provider. You need to sign up as a service provider so that we can create a database of experts of all service providers across the board. And remember that slideshow that I told you, if you don't remember anything, you need to play. That's the only way you can play a role in that sector, in the ecosystem, when we have your details of absolutely everything, be it a SME, be it a catering company. The list is endless, it's not limited. Just think of an event. What will an event planner want, and how can we make an event planner's event become more successful?
Welcome to this week's edition of the Business 7 Show. My name is Okwane, and joining me in studio is Esther Ndilula, who is the manager of the Namibia Convention Bureau. Thank you so much for honoring the invite to the Business 7 Show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Just to sketch us the picture, the Namibia Convention Bureau, what is it exactly? What are its stated objectives, and what are the outcomes that you hope to achieve through the creation of this bureau?
I think let me take you back a bit. Post-COVID, tourism was really halted drastically. So the Minister of Environment and Tourism decided to go upon a tourism revival plan. And the tourism revival plan, the aim was to really see how we can diversify tourism, because it's such a broad industry. And it's just not leisure that we are normally used to as far as Namibia is concerned. So as a result, one of the results that came out in the diversification of tourism was business tourism. And business tourism is now in the industry called MICE, which is an acronym for meetings, incentives, conferences, and events. So as a result, there was a proposal done that let us build this new industry called the business tourism. And then the minister then, the former minister, Honorable Pohamba Shefeta, took it up upon himself to take it to cabinet. And there was a cabinet decision done to set up an office called the Namibia Convention Bureau, an office that's responsible now to set up this business tourism. And also, now you hear me talking about business tourism, meetings industry, MICE, it's one and the same. So the aim really is just to position Namibia as the ideal or premier destination for MICE. So we want to attract as many international meetings, incentives, conferences, and events to Namibia, and all in the name of diversification, reduce the unemployment rate as well as the economic development. So that's the one goal for the Convention Bureau. The other one is just to position itself as a information office, like a center office way, so one-stop shop office for stakeholders that are in the MICE industry to come to that office and be able to ask any information as far as the country is concerned. So we're responsible to provide profile information as far as Namibia is concerned, the necessary service providers, to make it easy for them to organize their meetings, their incentives, their conferences or events, MICE. So that's really the Namibia Convention Bureau.
Essentially, as far as you're concerned, because there's obviously still a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of setting up a proper Namibia Convention Bureau. But in the meantime, where are you housed under the Ministry of Environment? Are you housed with the NIPDB? What is that setup looking like at the moment?
So the current setup is I'm incubated. I use the word incubated. I'm incubated by NIPDB. So at the Ministry of Environment and Tourism, they wanted to look for an office for now, because I'm literally the only one for now where I can be housed, and then just do the basics. Starts with the standard operational procedures, see how we can strategically position ourselves. Obviously, I won't be able to do it myself, but just to literally on the ground set up this office, and then I'll start from the ground up. And then Menangola took on the call to incubate the office. And that's because the Namibia Convention Bureau aligns with the objectives of NIPDB. Delegates come as tourists, but they can also come as investors at the end of the day. So that's what they were looking at, like, if we get an increase of delegates coming in for this MICE industry, the likelihood of getting investment out of it for anything. And I mean, think about a new industry. We need more hotels. We need a convention center. Anything around the service chain of making sure that we have a reputable and a world-class service industry, you need as many services as possible. So the more they realize that there's a gap in that space, the more the investment. So I think that's why they took on the call. So I'm currently sitting at NIPDB, but the project belongs to the Ministry of Environment, Forestry, and Tourism.
What you've been speaking to now, would it align to the most critical strategic goal before the 2026 plan is fully enacted, setting up an office, setting up structures, and so on?
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't get your question.
I'm saying, what is the single most strategic goal for the NCB in the immediate future before its 2026 plan is then enacted?
Definitely, seeing that MICE industry is a new industry in this country, awareness, awareness, national awareness, for everybody to really understand what the magnitude of this industry and what it can really do for Namibia as a country. That's one. And then we really want to see local participation in the value chain, because that's the aim. The current status is, when you hear a lot of these big events that are coming in, the likes of the Green Hydrogen Summit or the AUs, these event organizers bring in their own service providers because they're not really sure if we are capable. And that's really the value chain that we want to fill in with the local service providers, our local people, and touching the MSMEs and to make sure that they are really part of this value chain. So those are the two.
So sort of local content creation.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's why we're setting up this industry.
Yeah. Just want to, in the past 2-3 years, there was a VIA-Dev that took place in Namibia, and then obviously you alluded to the Green Hydrogen Summits and so on. What are just some of the biggest observations that you've seen, and possibly where Namibia could, where there's immediate benefit for participants in this value chain?
It's what I highlighted earlier. The biggest thing that we don't realize with MICE is it has a lot of stakeholders included. When I tell you event planners, now those are the key players, right? But event planners don't necessarily have to come from outside. They don't have to be international event planners. We can have our very own international planners from Namibia attracting international events and delegates to Namibia. That's one. And then the value chain goes as far as media, MCs, providing souvenirs during this conferences, those tote bags that you have, or Namibian souvenirs, and or tours, medical services, catering, traditional restaurants coming in to be able to provide our traditional cuisines and giving them a Namibian experience. There's such a vast of services that we can provide as far as events are concerned. The accommodations are usually the ones that are given, because you look at the accommodations that's around, but we also need more hotels, because we find ourselves, because remember, tourists are still a very key thing in our country. So you find yourself really not getting enough accommodation, because the tourists have taken most of their hotels, and then you find yourself having delegates that you have to put in Airbnbs or so we need a lot of accommodation. We need a convention center. We need entertainers to be able to, local entertainers to be able to take part of this. So it's the vast of stakeholders that the local can really take up and be a part of as far as this value chain is concerned.
Do you see a lot of interest from local service providers to participate, given that it's a new industry basically? Honestly,
at the moment, I cannot know, because they don't really know much of it. And that's why I feel that awareness, as soon as I'm glad that we finally launched the Bureau. So now our task is to bring awareness, because the problem about the Bureau is it's tagged up, in as much as it's business tourism. Once a person hears tourism, then they feel, tourism. They box it under tourism. But in as much as it's a tourism, it's part of the tourism industry sector, it touches on different other sectors. And hence I'm talking about the creatives, the lines, the chain, I don't want to repeat myself, the chain of the various services that I just highlighted. It touches on different industries. So I think it's up to us to be able to create as much awareness as possible and say, enter and be a part of this, because you'll constantly be hearing about these events coming in and going out without benefiting, without our local people benefiting. And that's what we are really trying to do away with.
Beyond the 23 million already generated, what is the key non-financial metric that will define the Bureau's success, in the build-up to its operationalization in 2026?
I'll say a demonstrable scale and caliber of events that we are able to attract to our country. Yes. Worldwide events that are known around the world, and I'm talking about the Formula Ones and the awards shows that you get to hear around the world happening. All those big events that can really give a spotlight to our destination as Namibia and show our competitiveness as far as the destination is concerned. So I think that's the one thing, definitely. I would want to see that, but because that's more scalable.
Of course.
And then it has a ripple effect.
Of course.
Yeah.
Since 978 MICE visas were issued out of the 1,186 applicants, how will you as the NCB address the approximately 20% of non-issued visa applications to ensure that this process is easy?
Okay, so what we've noticed is, based on our analysis, it wasn't really based on the system. It was based on delegates withdrawing. Now, what we're trying to find out is the withdrawing of coming to a destination based on lack of information, or was it just, one of those unforeseen circumstances? So I think as an office, would rather really start engaging these event organizers more and make sure that they are in sync, or they have as much information as possible to make sure and provide a more attractive package. So we're just not going to sell accommodation. We're going to sell a Namibian experience, showcase what Namibian has to offer apart from coming in for either a meeting or incentive, a conference or event. So I think that's what one of the goals. But like I said, the MICE visa process, it's still we're still prototyping. So obviously there's a few glitches that we're still teething out, but what we have noticed is, I think the information is given late, and then the decision is probably, one of the decisions of not coming is maybe due to lack of information. So I think we want to be more proactive this time and also sell a Namibian experience rather than just venues and the typical tick the box of come in. We can be able to host your event.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Business 7 show.
Thank you, Khole.
So South Africa is part of SACU, which is the customs union, a trade bloc, which includes South Africa, Botswana, Namibia, Swaziland, and Lesotho. Amongst other things, this bloc ensures that there's free trade amongst these countries. There aren't tariffs and random blockage of products from moving from one country to the next, except, of course, there are certain national security risks. The bloc has been in existence for some time, since 1910, and in certain times it has undergone a period of review. But I think at the moment it does require a serious review for a number of reasons. One, because there are some countries in this bloc that continuously block South African products from being exported to those countries, particularly in agriculture. And the two countries that have continued with this practice is Botswana and Namibia. Namibia has blocked South African vegetable for some time. We're still restricted from exporting vegetables to Namibia. Botswana has done the same in 2021 and in years following that. But last year, they temporarily lifted those restrictions. But we learned today, December 8th, that they actually put those restrictions back online. And this, of course, then will limit South Africa from participating in that market. The key argument that all of these countries put on the table is that they want to increase their own domestic production, which is a fair thing, and we want countries to do that. But I do think that there is an appropriate way of doing that without completely shutting off trade and disrupting the value chains in this region, disadvantages the consumers in these countries, the retailers, but also not thinking about the coordination in this region and respecting the rules of the game of SACU, the customs union. And I think that because of these frequent practices that we are all observing, there is a need to ensure that we review this. Of course, Botswana is an important market for South Africa for a range of products. But if we look on the vegetables alone, I mean, when we think about our vegetable exports to the world, they are just over $200 million US, and Botswana out of that accounts for roughly about 8% or so of South Africa's vegetable exports. But put that aside, the issue is not only just about the value and the economic impact on the South African farmers. I think the bigger issue is about how this group practice and how the rules of the game are actually respected in this group. The second and the last point here is about what this grouping does in limiting South Africa's ability on negotiating new trade agreements, because if South Africa is to enter any trade agreement with another country, it has to come back to this group and seek consensus so that all of these countries can agree. And I think on the basis of that, the frequent friction that we are experiencing, the limits that we continue to experience when we are trying to start free trade agreement, I think it's an appropriate time to really look into this SACU conversation and say, perhaps, can it be modernized to fit today's moment?
Thank you so much for joining us on the Business 7 show. Hope to see you again. Good night.